that's all really great stuff for when you have the opportunity to do it. There's two main things that Aikido does. It deals with fighting. And fighting in human culture tends to be, you know, you're looking at me. Hey, and, you know, the shove and the spit and the balls to the wall, here it goes. That's sort of human dominance, sorting out dumb behavior stuff. And it's great to be able to accomplish a lot with that. And almost everything we do that we think about when we're doing Aikido deals with that. Deals really well with that. But there's a whole other side of violence, is predatory violence, that's not interested in a fight at all. It's not interested in picking a fight with you. The predator is looking at you like prey, and they're just going to show up and get the advantage on you and get you. They don't want to fight with you, unless they want to toy with you somehow in a fight. That's part of their fantasy struggle. But usually they just want to and drag you off and do whatever they're going to do, you know? They fall on you like prey to take your wallet or to take your life or to take your whatever they're going to take from you, but they're not interested in fighting. And so the first signs you get from a real serious predator is the bar stool's hitting you. I mean, you're sitting there having your soup and then bang, you get hit, and now you know a fight is on. You didn't even get the signal that it was coming. That's a serious bad piece of news. And we train for that as well, but we don't realize we train for that as well. We train for that with uke. Because uke is the part of our training where we hit the ground a lot. Because part of the recovering from this overwhelming sensation of bang, you've had high impact come in on you, and something's hitting you and something's messing with you, and you're messed up and you're sideways and you're on one foot and you're you know, it's a sudden surprise and it's a shock. The tendency in the human animal is to go into shock, have high adrenaline boosts, and then kind of freak out. You know, or just lock up. A lot of freeze up action. And you have to train a reflex under that sort of extreme, overwhelming sensation that includes a lot of impact and includes a lot of being in screwed up states. To come off of screwed up states, out of off balance, for instance, and back into a position where you can do what? Re-attack. Because the first primary job is not to do a damn technique. If something hit you in the head, and that's the first sign you have that the fight is on, is the brick has hit you in the head, the immediate response cannot be based around, I'll do a technique to him, I'll do a counterpunch, I'll do a protege to him, I'll do a shomanate to him. You don't know. All you can do is get their center. All you can do is something very dumb that we do all the time, which is hand to the face, laying hands on them. Getting a hold of their center immediately. And once you have a hold of it and own a piece of them, then you can go to town and be Tory again. But the first job is to recover off the bad position, in the good position, and immediately, without pause, be in the process as you recover of taking their center away. That's the survival stuff under real predatory conditions. Uke teaches it to us. Tory has nothing to do with it. Tory is great once your cognitive function is back and your fine motor control is back, and if your adrenaline is still cool. But at a certain point in adrenaline reflex, your fine motor control goes away, your rational mind goes away, you start thinking irrational thoughts and doing repetitive action, and everything gets really funky. So you have to train reflex to live under that overwhelm so you can mediate your adrenaline. And so you have to invest in uke and invest in the positions of disadvantage, or what we think of as failing or falling or losing. You have to be uke a lot so that your adrenalized reflexes don't get the better of you. Because if they do, then wow, you're back in the freak out, lock up. The bombardment just continues as you go, you know. You're lucky if you get away from it at that point. And they have people in combat that say, yeah, my adrenaline got so bad I couldn't get the magazine back in my rifle, let alone put bullets in it. If my hands wouldn't let it do it, they were just dumb clubs, you know. Or they get in the middle and they start getting the blackout thing. Everything starts narrowing down. They start going deaf. They start getting real shaky. And that's about 145 beats per minute and up. And up till that point, the adrenaline's helping you. Up till that point, it's keeping you more vigorous, alive, aware, able to function and act wonderfully. But at a certain breakover point, not so cool. So we have to work into that edge of that adrenaline over and over again. And the main place is to get overwhelmed as uke again and again and again. So there's off-balance drills that we like to do. Think of it as randori, where you pick somebody and you just put them in a problem, and as they solve the problem, put them in another problem, put them in another problem, put them in another problem, hand in the face, a 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 hand in the face. If they fail, boom, they get hit, the floor hits them. And the floor hits you harder than most humans ever will. It hits you all over the body at once, and it hits you hard. And so you get people trained against hitting the floor, and they get a reflex against impact that's very, very different. I've seen it with Judo guys, because you take them, and they've never been in a fight in their life, and they learn to fall, and they hit the ground a lot, bam, 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 bam. A Judo match, and the guy slugs them, just incidental contact, And it just pisses them off. It doesn't hurt them. They don't get shocked. They don't go, ow, or, they don't freak out. They just are kind of, it makes them meaner. Well, that's good. You want that. You want that immediate instead of, because the doesn't help. Doesn't save your ass. The immediate getting into it and going right after it saves your ass. And that's okay. I believe that if you took two people and you trained them from day one, and one got to do nothing but torque, they couldn't do any falling, and they couldn't do any receiving attack, and they couldn't do any even padding out, nothing. All they got to do was grab the guy and do stuff to him, get out of the way and do stuff to him, take him off balance, do stuff to him. They just got to do that part, the part we think of as the cool part. I'm doing Aikido. I think I'm doing the cool part, right? You train somebody to do nothing but that. You do it for a year. You take the second guy, and he does nothing but uke. He doesn't ever get to throw anybody. All he gets to do is get hit and fall down and get up and get hit and fall down and get cranked and twisted and thrown over and over and over again. And at the end of the year, you put them both in a life or death struggle. My money's on uke. My money's on the guy that has hit the deck a bunch of times, gotten resilient, come back from the problem over and over and over again, and has the resiliency and physical intensity built into their nervous system to handle real conflict. Because the other guy has a bunch of strategy and a bunch of cool tools, but the internal reflex mechanisms aren't there for survival. So we tend to think about uke with some weird negativity, like, or I don't like the falling part, or I don't want to take as much falls as you can. That's the part that will save your life. That's the part that will save your ass in the real world. Think about self-defense. I learned to fall down, and so I fell off the ladder and I saved my life because I survived the fall. But it's all kinds of problems. Because if you've been adapted to deal with this in your face, and he comes off of this, and now it's this in his face, and he comes off of this, and now it's this in his face, he comes off of this in his face, he comes off of this in his face. He hits the ground, he comes back up, boom, this is in his face, 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 and he gets overwhelmed by it. Everybody does. You can't not. And if you're not getting overwhelmed, you need somebody else to come do it more often, because it should start feeling like, oh shit, I really hate this. You want to let that happen enough in your training that you get that sense of overwhelming so that you get up to that adrenaline threshold again and again and push it out a little so you feel it. And it's like going to the gym. If you let them completely overwhelm you right off the bat, then you just freak out and fall over. Well, but you want to extend that out longer and longer and longer so that you can accept the problem, solve the problem, accept the problem, solve the problem, accept the problem, solve the problem, and stretch it out as long as possible. Because you want to be more and more resilient in the face of that adrenalized, overwhelming reflex. Cool. So it becomes a necessary part of the training regime. People say, man, they're just going with you. Yeah, they should for a long time. Because if you fight it, if you start to fight the off balance, if he says, he's just not going to accept the off balance, he's going to beat this out of your brain. Yeah. He's just shoving it out. Well, that's cool. I shove this one. Boom. and he has some rigidity and stiffness. The rigidity and stiffness is funny because if he gets solid here, he can do nothing about this stuff. Bam, 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 bam. When he gets structural to stop this from hitting him, he can't really react to this other stuff hitting him. His arms and his upper body have to stay loose to reflex against other blows. And when they start to get, oh, you can't do it to me, man, you can just have your way with them. Pop, 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 pop. You can afford to stand there and box with them, and they'll just stand flat-footed, holding rigid while you kill them. So you don't want to build ukes that rigidify. Uke needs to be loose and fluid and rocking and rolling and moving and responding to each problem and each contact and overcoming it and then getting a new problem. Okay? It's very important to invest in. Yeah?
Well, what you said, I've got several examples, but Ben is probably the best one.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll throw people and I don't know what's happened. It's just boom, it's happened.
Right.
Ben was
Upside down on his head. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got to stop for just a second, and then he rolled out of it.
Sure.
But I mean, you know, he's probably what? This is probably this high off the ground. Who's there?
It's probably closer to that.
Yeah. People invert
Now,
sometimes.
my question to the class was, who do you think upgraded more, me or Ben?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ben.
Right.
To go along with what you're saying.
Right. The
You know.
ukemi is what cooks
Because
it.
very few people ever see that.
Right. Thank God.
Yeah.
If that were par for the course, you wouldn't have many students. Come in here, stand on your head. Oh shit, you can't stand on your head.
Well,
sorry about that.
2 feet up.
Right, exactly.
We're just going to drop you.
It's not normal human behavior, that's for sure. So take your partner, if you will, the last few minutes and just take turns. Take turns. One person just be uke and just accept energy, and recover, and recover. And after you've got that cooking for a little while and you're feeling that going, then you can start coming out of it and passing the problem back to them. In other words, you start the exercise with just a hand in the face and a hand in the face. And he's not being aggressive. Hand in the face, 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 hand in the face. You put your hand up, that's cool. I'll take it off, hand in the face, hand in the face, hand in the face, hand in the face. Right? You get this sort of thing happening. After a while, he wants to push this off and feed me a new problem. Now I got the problem. And now he's got the problem. And now he wants to give it back to me. I've got the problem. Now he's got it. So you're passing it back and forth like feeding ukemi back and forth. We're not trying to throw each other. We're trying to stretch out the engagement so that we can both get the reflexive recovery model going from all the positions of screwed up that you can find your body in. And some of them you just can't survive. You just fall. That's okay. That's not failing. That's training your reflex against impact. Cool? Okay, cool. Great. Go to work.